Hello, Kirsty.
Hi,
Thank you
Karen.
for being my second guest on the podcast.
You're
I
welcome.
just want to give my listeners a brief introduction of what we're talking about, if they haven't listened to the other one. So we have a lot of podcasts where other experts or other health professionals or fitness professionals are talking to each other about the non-diet approach or health at every size. But we don't actually hear it from a client's perspective, like an everyday perspective. And I wanted people who have maybe heard about the non-diet approach, but don't quite know enough about it to make a decision as to whether it's good for them. So I thought it would be helpful for them to hear it from the perspective of an everyday person who has incorporated it into their life. So that's you.
Hi.
So if you want to give people just a little bit of a brief background of like what was your relationship with exercise like before you discovered like a non-diet alternative?
Yeah, I've always loved sports, always been involved in sports. I played hockey at school, and then from there I did karate for years and years as a teenager, found rugby, which really was a huge passion of mine, and
Mhm.
played for a very long time. Um, and from there, I sort of retired from rugby and found myself in the strongwoman community. And really, it was from being in the strongwoman community that I discovered there was a totally different way to have a relationship with exercise. So while I'd always loved playing sport, I'd kind of forced myself to the gym for one of two reasons. One, because I wanted to be in a smaller body because I thought I would be a better athlete, and also I wanted to get better at my sport. And it was a change in my circumstances and a change in my health that meant I had to retire from rugby.
Mhm.
I had a few years where I did Pilates and walking, but I wasn't really well enough to do much more than that. Had some surgery, which changed my life and was amazing, and decided, right, I'm going to get back to the gym and I'm going to get fitter and healthier. And at that point, that meant skinnier and wanted to lose weight. And it was a woman at the gym went, "You're quite strong." I went, "Yeah, always have been." She went, "Have you had your strong woman?" I went, "No, what is it?" "Like what you see on the telly at Christmas, fat." And from there on Instagram, I started following some strong women, and I saw the hashtag strong not skinny. And I was like, "Oh, what's this about?" And that kind of led me down the so-called rabbit hole of non-diet culture,
Mhm.
that it was okay to go to the gym and one, do stuff that you enjoyed, and also it was okay to pursue being strong
Yeah.
and not just making your body smaller. And for me, that was absolutely revolutionary. I never heard of this concept. And for probably the first 5 or 6 months, I was just like, okay. I mean, I want to get stronger. That's good. But I was like, "No, I'm still not too sure." And it took me a while to get to the point where I actually ditched the scales.
Yeah.
Um, I remember when I first got with my now wife, getting under 100 kilos for the first time since being a teenager, because I was still a little bit in that, okay, I can be strong, but
Mhm.
obviously I want to lose weight. Like, who
Or
doesn't
it,
want to lose
like
weight?
it takes even when we've changed our mindset around certain things, that one seems to be the thing that kind of like takes long, like you are accepting that, oh, I don't need to be like skinny, but there's still that, oh, but I need to be this certain weight, and it's
Yeah,
weird, isn't it? Because you've got like an argument going on in your head.
yeah. And then I went to my first strong woman comp, and it was in a car park in Doncaster, and there was women of, and I'd always seen lots of diverse bodies, but it was very much accepted in rugby. If you were fat, you were in the front five, and if you were
Mhm.
skinny, you were a back. But these were women of all different shapes and sizes, all doing the same thing. It was no, oh, you're a big girl, you'll be in the pack, or oh, you're skinny, you'll be on the wing, or no, it was just everyone doing the same thing, doing the best that they could. And then I followed some more strong women on
Mhm.
Instagram, and I started to get a little bit more involved in the community. And I made the decision. I'd worked within sport for a while doing sports massage, and I decided I want to take my career a bit further. And I got accepted to go to Loughborough. And it was really when I went to uni that yes, I was surrounded with elite athletes, and if anything, being in that very hyper competitive, very kind of elite mindset, I was like, actually, I think this strong, not skinny, and this health at every size, and there could be something in this, and kind of the more, obviously, when you go through the process of going to university, a lot of it is about questioning the norms, questioning, is this actually evidence to support this? And I think by going through that process of going through uni at the same time of kind of this own sort of personal discovery, I very much, by probably the end of my first semester, I was like, oh no, I am anti-diet. I remember being in a public health lecture, and we had a lecture about diet culture, and I saw the stat that 95% of diets do not work over 2 years. And it blew my mind, because I was like, I thought it was me.
Yeah.
I thought I lacked willpower. And this is from a woman who at that time was doing 4 strength sessions a week and a cardio event session. At this point, I'd just gone to England, and I'd placed 9th, and I was super proud of that. But there was still that little bit in the back of my mind of, you're big and you're not really an athlete, are you? And I just, that stat, it changed everything.
Yeah. Can I just say, for people listening, I had a very similar experience. I went to university, I studied exercise and health. One of my case studies was on, do diets really work? It was like just, and I started reading the research, and I was like, wow, the success rates of diets long term is incredibly low. And this is not something that the fitness industry or the diet industry talks about. But here is scientific, studied, randomized controlled trials, evidence to state that the keeping weight off for longer than 2 years is actually pretty low.
And I mean, at this point, I'd done Weight Watchers, I'd done Slimming World, I'd done my Fitness Pal, logging every single thing that I ate. I had worked with a sports nutritionist, and I still was 110 kilos, the same way I have been on and off most of my adult life.
And to cut in as well, you, if you don't mind me saying, you was dealing with a chronic illness the whole time of this. Nobody talks about the impact that a chronic condition can have actually on your body and your metabolism and the way that your body responds, and like, so you remained that weight whilst you was doing strongman, whilst you was doing rugby, like, so you were active
from about the age of about 22, 23, I've been that weight, I've been that size, anywhere between a 16 to 20, depending on where you shop. My clothes still fit me the same, and like I say, I've had periods where I've lost that weight and I've got smaller, never kept it off. And then I just sat in public health class, and I heard that stat, and it just blew my mind. And then from there, I learned about the Haze movement. I learned about not to get too political, but how kind of like white privilege pays into a lot of things, about how sort of BMI was structured and the population it was taken on. I then started to learn, as my degree went on, about genetics, about chronic illnesses, about all of these different things, even down to the atmosphere and the air that we breathe now, with like post-industrial, and how all of that is just all of a sudden, it just, like I say, just blew my mind, and very, very quickly shifted me into I would say probably health at every size. And then from there was another progression to, okay, you might not lose weight, but you should still do this stuff because you have to. And what I would say, the shift from me to where I've got to, I would say, a total non-diet approach, and what I would say exercise for enjoyment has been motherhood. Because I could accept that I could do stuff I didn't want to do because it was good for my health and all of this. And then I became a mother, and I had zero time. And I was like, I tried to force myself back to the gym 2 or 3 times. And I was like, I'm just not enjoying this. Like, this just isn't what it was before we had a child.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked with a couple of granted male PTs, but it was who was available to me at the time. And it didn't fit, and sort of came and come and go. And then I kind of came across yourself through women I know in the strong women community.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, actually, what? Like, you don't just play sport and it be fun. You can go to the gym and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. Not crazy things. Like, you can do 10 minutes of exercise and it counts. No, because what I then had to break when I became a mother was, okay, I can accept that an athlete can be any size and you can do this, but it was then breaking that athlete mindset of you have to do an hour. If you go hard or go home, if no pain, no gain. And it was then almost breaking through another whole set of ways of thinking. So I'd maybe come from that, like, I don't want, I'm not training to be small, I'm training to be strong, and I'm training for my health, and I'm training for this, to then, okay, I'm very, very time poor, and I'm not able to train how I used to. So if I can't do that, then what do I do? And I was almost kind of just left sort of just floating along, like, well, and then I started reading more of your content, which kind of then led me to read I think the Instagram handles like Little Misfits or Fat Girl Flow. And I started getting into, and I was like, whoa, she's only doing a 10-minute workout. Oh, I can do that. I've got 10 minutes. Like, and what, I don't have to go and do 10 minutes on battle ropes and then go chuck up. Like, I can just do 10 minutes of what I like. So that again it wasn't just one moment, it was lots of little realizations, probably over the last sort of 5 years, that's kind of got me to this point where I train when I can, and I really enjoy what I do, but it now fits with the time and the lifestyle that I've got now.
And I think you touched on it, on that part there about, like, you entered motherhood and you realize that your priorities and your time changes.
Totally.
And it's like, so we've come from an era of no excuses and all this crap, which is ableist. It doesn't fit into people's lifestyles. And it's not, I hate the word excuses, because we all have reasons, and we've got so many barriers in place. And you know what? Some of those barriers we could work around, but there's some, like, we can't not be a mom, like
I'm really sorry, I can't get more sleep because my toddler was up for 7 hours through the night. Like, that's just what they do. And also, like, personally for me as well, like, my wife was very, very poorly in her pregnancy. I'm very poorly after giving birth, and my family needed a lot more than maybe someone who'd had a lot more simpler kind of pregnancy and post-birth experience. And it wasn't really till my daughter was a little bit older, kind of 12 to 18 months, that really they didn't need that level of care from me. But I, at this whole time, was still trying and believing that I was failing because I wasn't finding time. And there was an influencer, I think she was on one of the reality shows, that we've all got the same 24 hours in a day. We haven't got the same 24 hours in a day, because in my 24 hours in a day, I've got to walk the dog, I've got to clean the house, I've got to look after my poorly wife and my poorly baby. And I also now have to try and deal with all of this guilt of, well, you're not going to the gym, you're not being healthy, you're not doing this. And it was a lot, but I'm really proud of the process to get to here. And, that I can actually show my daughter that, you exercise in a way that works for you, in a time scale that works for you. And it doesn't matter whether that's a 20-minute walk or a 20 minutes in the gym. If you want to do it and it works for you, then that's it. That's what works.
Yes. And it's like, what I love about when we get to this point, it's a lifelong relationship, because we know that we can apply flexibility. We know that, like, there's going to be consistent weeks where we can get those hour-long workouts in at the gym and get progress on our deadlifts, and then we hit the brakes because our condition flared up, or like needles, and then so we just adjust, and it's like, okay, so I can't do those hour-long sessions, but do you know what, I could do 10 minutes. Like, So the
Yeah, so like
momentum
for me
continues.
yesterday, I didn't get my workout finished because I had to spend more time stretching because
Mhm.
my back's not too good at the minute. Even a year ago, because I'm limited with my time because I can only really train when I've got childcare. So I
Mhm.
only have just over an hour at the gym. So, but even 6, 7 months ago, I'd have been like, what a loser. You didn't finish your training session.
Mhm.
Like, well, no, do you know what? Actually, I'm not a loser. I've done what I can do in the time that I've got, and I should
Yeah.
be proud that that's an achievement.
And that's the celebratory stuff that that's the stuff we like to celebrate, isn't it, in the group chats?
Yeah,
Like, you know what? You got out, you did 10 minutes, you got out, you had a walk, you stretched.
yeah.
Like, these
And
are the
and I had
things,
to,
yeah.
3, 4 weeks ago, totally abandon the gym because I wasn't in the mindset that
Mhm.
I would have been able to train safely. So instead, I prioritized getting outside with my daughter because that was what was right for me. And being able to do that and see that just as valuable
Mhm.
as going to the gym.
I love that. It's so well. I feel like we've moved through the questions about the questions being said, but like what we was going to talk about was how it's impacted your life as someone with a background of sports studies and athletics
Yeah,
and a chronic condition. And I feel like we are on that part of it becomes a form of support and self-care, doesn't it? Rather
yeah.
than what we're used to of like being punishing and to look a certain way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and definitely like, and it is that progression from going from training to lose weight or under that like sort of veil of health,
Yeah.
and then but equally the athlete mindset and what you need to do to achieve those levels of success, while different, can be just as hard to break free from.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I just need to grab a tissue. I'm like, "Oh, see, I told you earlier, I didn't think I was coming down with a cold." Well, I was going to say, because we've got the added layer of the sports studies and
Yeah,
the. So I use the term loosely for me as an athlete, but I was a competitive powerlifter.
as an
Not, I
athlete,
wasn't elite, but I was a
doesn't
competitive
matter. You
Yeah,
were an athlete. You were training towards a competitive goal. And for me,
exactly.
that is an athlete. Like,
It was, and there was like I'm not saying that I put my heart. I think what happened was my identity still was about how I looked and stuff, and then like not my whole identity, but you do kind of make it part of you, don't you?
yeah,
So I went from being super slim to like then I discovered strong, not skinny, and then so it was still about what my body looked like.
yeah.
And it took
Or what your
and
body could do.
could do, yeah,
Because
and
it doesn't matter that I'm a size 18, I've got 170 kilo deadlift.
yeah.
Ha! It doesn't matter what I look like. I've got this. So it was almost that little bit for me of, instead of it being about what my body looked like, I
Mhm.
very much prided myself on what my body could do.
Yeah.
And then, like everything in life, my chronic illness crept back in, and oh, my body can't do all of that. Well,
Mhm.
then what?
Oh, yeah. So, how did you
Oh, and now
cope
I'm
with
a
that?
mum. Like, oh,
Do you know
like,
what? The part of the fitness you touched on the white privilege and that, and I think it's important for us to name diet culture for what it is, and it's a system of oppression,
yeah,
and there's no getting away from that. It creates a hierarchy of bodies. It creates rules around what we should do with our bodies, and it causes oppression because the people who don't fit that criteria,
yeah.
we're marginalized. Um, so how did you cope? So it's ableist as well, isn't it? It's an
Yeah,
ableist system. How did you cope when your body couldn't do the things that
I
you
just
wanted it
felt
to
like
do?
an absolute failure
Mhm.
because I'd not quite got to the point of where I am now, which is like, I would say, movement for enjoyment.
Yeah.
Um, I wouldn't necessarily say I replaced the what I look like with what I can do, but there was a big crossover in that
Mhm.
thinking. And part of it was enabled by being in that elite athlete environment, by,
Yeah.
you know, two of my classmates are now Olympians. Three of them play for Scotland.
Mhm.
A couple of them are international cricketers. Like, and it was fine, and they accepted me, and they weren't the issue. They were like, "Cool, you're really strong, brilliant." Like,
Yeah.
but it was what you do within yourself and how that then makes you feel when your body no longer functions like that.
Mhm.
And that is the thing with a chronic illness. Like, you can have periods where you wouldn't even know there's necessarily anything wrong with you, but then something changes, whether it's your circumstances, your stress, or some days you just wake up and that's it, you're sick again.
Yeah.
And that was very much how it was for me. You're then like, let's see, you're just kind of left floating because that doesn't fit you anymore. You're not, you can't be that competitive athlete because you can't train in that way.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that's fine. And then very much for me, that also then coincided with the pandemic, which was huge, but then also gave me a little bit of that space to maybe think about my relationship with exercise and just my relationship with everything, and you know, how I'd maybe also used my relationship with exercise to support my mental health, and how when all the gyms closed and that was it, like there was just nothing. And that as well, I think if the pandemic hadn't have happened, I'm not sure if I would have ended up in this place now, because it did give me that space and that time, one, to work out other ways of coping with things rather than just keeping busy and training and exercising. It actually gave me time and space to work on my mental health, which, while an elite sport, is now starting to be spoken about. Again, some other like really crazy stats is 1 in 2 professional dancers has a diagnosed eating disorder. 50% of elite athletes struggle with OCD, depression, anxiety. They are the most like commonly diagnosed in elite athletes is OCD, depression, anxiety. And the vast majority of elite athletes at some point will need a lot of mental health support. And as well, coming through injury and illness post-pregnancy. And it's only really now, even 2-3 years ago, it wasn't really spoken about. And we had all of the stats in front of us. We were looking and studying it. And I could see these people going through these things and not being supported through it. So, you know, it was a lot of things that, looking at my sports background, the circumstances that we've all been through kind of globally, and it's all contributed to kind of getting to this point.
So and to talk about the pandemic, I like, obviously we're not going to get a pandemic to go through those thoughts again, touch wood, because that was an awful time for so many people. But before that happened, I actually took a year off structured exercise for the very same reason. I needed to separate myself from exercise. I needed to figure out what I was using it for, why, and then to be able to come back to it with a clarity around how it supported me, rather than using it as a tool to
and I think it would do a disservice to what the pandemic did to me to not mention it, and to not mention that it actually, yes, there was lots of things that were very difficult and very stressful in the pandemic, but it did actually give me that little bit of a break and a pause to think about my relationship with exercise, my relationship with my body, my relationship with so many different things.
Absolutely.
You know, I'm not going to say it was a bed of roses, because it wasn't. The pandemic was a really horrible thing for everyone to go through.
But it gave a lot of us that space, didn't it?
But it did give a lot of it. So, you know, and it did affect my degree as well, because the pandemic started in my last semester at uni. So, you know, I wrote my dissertation. Instead of being in the library with my friends, I was at home stuck with just me and the dog, because the people I lived with as well, their job still carried on, and my whole life ground to a halt. And what my sports science background gave me the ability to do was, because I was in that kind of critical analysis space, I was actually able to then apply that to my own life. But I don't think I would have done that if life had kind of just carried on. I'd just carried on training, being busy, like working, this, that, and the other. So, you know, I do kind of have to mention it when I talk about my progress to get to here.
Oh, absolutely.
But also it made it really difficult to get back to regular exercise, because post-pandemic, like, and what I didn't want it to be was, and this sounds awful, but an excuse to stop doing something I do enjoy. But I needed help to get back
into it.
Because after I needed that space and I needed that break, but then I also needed help, and that was then, you know, particularly with them becoming a mom and all of these different circumstances happening. But I think I had to go through all of that to get to the point where I am now, where I can apply the flexibility and the grace that I would want my best mate to give themselves
Yes.
and actually give it to me.
And I think that's like the kindness and the compassion that we talk about a lot in the non-diet
Yeah.
industry is like you need to be able to be kind and compassionate with yourself. And like you said, the way that you talk to a best friend, a partner, like talk, give
Yeah.
yourself that grace, you know. Oh, and it's absolutely right that you should mention the pandemic and the space that you had, and it's just me saying about me taking a year off is not like the comparison, but it's like if you need that space
Yeah.
to figure things out, it's okay to actually not
Yeah,
exercise, like
and I think that was maybe forced upon me with the
yeah,
pandemic, but looking back now, it is maybe what I needed, just
yeah,
maybe not in those circumstances.
no, but you needed the space away to figure out how it actually could become like a more beneficial tool for you. So to bring it to a close, and you just touched on critical thinking. Um, what would you like? What advice would you give to someone who's watching this who may be on the fence about applying a bit of critical thought maybe to diet culture beliefs, but
Uh,
if they're suddenly if they wanted an alternative but they're not quite sure what, like, do you get what I mean, like
yeah,
what's
totally.
the
I
way
would
to
say don't, first off, don't, you are up against a multi-billion pound, dollar, whatever currency
Mhm.
industry. And that industry is based upon your insecurities. That industry is, they don't care about your health. They don't care about what's going on inside your brain. All they care about is taking your money off you.
Mhm.
Don't feel bad for falling victim to it. They have thousands and hundreds of people working on market employees and use of language and before and after photos and all of these different things, all designed to make you part with your money because you don't feel good about your body.
Yeah.
It's okay. We've all been there. We've all bought into it. We've all, and I think particularly for our generation, the culture of growing up in the noughties was incredibly difficult. The circle of shame, being a double size zero. We, particularly who were teenagers and young adults in that phase, that was what was surrounded you when your brain was laying down how to be an
Yeah.
adult and how to be a person. So don't, my first thing is don't feel bad for trying to think of things a different way.
Mhm.
And also, if it's not something that clicks straight away, there's nothing to go, okay, and then maybe come back to it at
Yeah.
another point. Just take it slowly. Rome wasn't built in a day, and as I've said to you, this is like a process of probably
Yeah.
4 or 5 years maybe.
Mhm. Same. I went through probably about 3 4 years for me, and to get to this point where exercise isn't the be all and end all. It's just something that actually helps me
Yeah,
to have
and
a better quality of
also,
life, you know.
it's when you start to break away from that, I'm exercising to change my body, it actually, I think, allows you to open up to all the other benefits of exercise,
Yes.
and all the other benefits of like health positive behaviors. So for me, during this process, I've actually stopped drinking.
Oh, I've cut down on my alcohol a lot too.
Yeah,
I
so don't get
haven't
me wrong, I
stopped
wouldn't say I'm
completely.
sober. It is now just holidays and high days
Yeah.
because um it's just opened my ways of thinking to other health benefits, and
Mhm.
it exercise can be something to lift your mood. If you could go for a walk, or you know I'm going to listen to this music to g myself up to go to
Yeah.
it's just opening up all of these other ways of just being and living your life. But it's a process, and it's not,
Mhm.
I don't ever expect anyone to read one Instagram post or listen to one podcast and be like, that's it, I'm anti-diet and I am movement for joy and all of this. But be open to the process
Mhm.
and just be open to it. It doesn't have to be something that you accept straight away, because I don't think it is something you
Yeah.
can accept straight
And
away.
that's a good point. Like, if you decide you're moving away from diet culture and you want to embrace a non-diet approach, and you carry on exercising and you still got thoughts of losing weight and you should be a certain way, and like you're not doing it wrong. Like that
No.
doesn't mean that it's not working.
No.
It just means you've got to give yourself time to get
Yeah.
through those feelings. And I think it's important for people to know that you're not going to drop those beliefs straight away. They're going to creep up, like, you know.
Yeah, and it's also, so
Yeah.
I mean, I've not been very well recently, and I've started some meds that have totally lost my appetite, and I have lost weight over the last month. And I went to the gym last week, and someone was like, "You're looking really good. You've dropped some weight, haven't you?" And I'm like, "No, actually, I'm really poorly at the minute. That's why I've
Yeah.
lost weight." And I was a bit uncomfortable at first. I was like, my first go-to thought was, "Oh, thanks, yeah." And I
Yeah.
was like, no,
No.
actually, because me losing weight is not a good thing. Me losing weight is because of my chronic illness.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next thought was, do I challenge that or do I not? And I was like, I know this person. I'm going to tell them, no, actually.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not saying you need to go out there and tell everyone, but you're always going to have those little things of, even when you're trying to work through that, of these little reminders that, but a lot of the world associates weight loss with being a positive, great thing. And actually, in my circumstance right now, it isn't.
Yeah.
It's not a good thing. And, you know, you just have to take it every day as it comes, and it is a process. And like I say, my initial thought when someone told me I'd lost weight was great, and then I took a second to think about it, and I was like, no, it's not. And then they kind of countered that with, oh well, you know, at least you've lost some weight. And I was like, yeah, thanks.
I know. Right. Do you know what? That reminds me of people who have stomach flus and things, and they'll go, "Oh, but you know, at least I lost like 5 pounds." It's like, but you were sick.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
And it's that any means necessary, isn't it? Again,
Yeah,
it's that,
and
you know.
and you know, and that's what I'm saying. I would probably say I'm sort of like 4 or 5 years into my drop in diet culture kind of thing, and even then, my first thought was, "Oh yeah, I've lost weight, great."
Yeah,
No,
I know.
no. So it's what I would say to people who are thinking about not coming to the non-diet side, but interested in what our belief system is around exercise and that relationship to yourself and to the world. Is it will always be a continual process.
Yeah.
And as you go on and as you learn more and as you do more and you question more, you just see more and more about, you know, just how it all works and what it means to you. So what I would say to anyone who is open to these ideas is also be open to the fact it's a process, and it's not just like you can flick a switch and stop those thoughts, because you can't, because we've been conditioned for decades to think this way.
Yeah.
And it's actually quite radical to question that.
I love it. That I love when we talk about that, because it feels like an act of resistance. It feels radical. It feels political, you know.
Yeah.
Because we are taking ownership of our bodies, and we are collectively, like, through example, telling people, like, you know, you don't have to look a certain way. Your body doesn't have to be this size, you know, you can go and do the things that you enjoy doing. You don't have to wait until you've lost X amount of weight. You can go and do these things now, you know, and to build strong and resilient bodies as we age, you know. We don't want to be frail. We want to be strong and sturdy.
No, strong mamas.
And obviously, I don't want to say, like, there's some things we cannot avoid. We might end up being frail because of conditions beyond our control, but whilst we can, let's try and build a solid foundation, you know.
Totally. And it's like I said to you when I first kind of found my way to you, I was like, I just, you know, I have got a chronic illness, I am time poor, but I still want to feel that I'm doing something to look after myself. It's just, it now needs to be within the limitations of I've got between my health and my time, you know, and my commitments and responsibilities.
Exactly. And so for you, that is like nothing versus something, you know what I mean?
And again, that was another barrier for me to break down, because, okay, yes, I'd shifted from I have to change my body to I'm an athlete. And then I was like, oh, actually, pandemic, nothing, space. Okay, maybe I'm not an athlete now, but I've still got to train hard. Actually, no, training hard doesn't work for me. Why don't we try and train in a way that you're going to utilize, you know, the little bit of time you have got, and that's got to be fun, or you're not going to want to do it. And I'm just really sort of grateful for yourself and for the group, and to actually be supported by other people who are trying to do that same thing.
So to finish, how would you say that it is, like, what's the main way that it's impacted your life to have this non-diet approach, a non-diet personal trainer, and a non-diet group of a community of people.
Just that example last week of, I'm probably like the only person in my gym that thinks like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine. But what has been really good is just being able to have those people who think the same way as me and they're trying to do the same things as me. And also, I want to bring my daughter up in a way that she doesn't have to go through the same things that I went through as a teenager in relation to body image and the media that you see. And I know things are getting better, but it's going to take a long time for everyone to get over and get through diet culture and the stuff that it does. And for me, finding a group of like-minded people has been really key in that confidence in myself of, actually, no, I'm not a lunatic for thinking the way that I do. There is other people out there who feel the same way and want to look after their bodies in the same way. And it is probably now got to the point where it is influencing my parenting, because now as a parent, try and follow something called division of responsibility for food. So we serve dessert if we're having it alongside dinner. We don't put any value over one type of food to another.
Yeah.
Like, if she wants an ice cream, fine. It doesn't matter if she had cake because we're earlier in the day, because we're going to have a really nice, nutritious dinner tonight.
Yeah.
It's the way that I now want to talk about myself and the relationship that I've got with my body has meant that I've bought books that are really inclusive, and I'm actively trying to find books and media that show lots of different types of bodies. Because when I was growing up, it was just straight sized people that were all white. Like, that was everything, because I was a white child. But the world is getting smaller, and we're more interconnected than ever, and from adapting this kind of mindset with myself, I think the biggest thing is it influences how I parent. And I want to bring up someone who trusts their body, knows when they're hungry what they like to eat, and on days that she's done tons of activity at 4 o'clock, she's like, porridge, because she knows porridge fills her up and gives her energy. And I would never have got to that point with her if I hadn't been supported and met a group of like-minded people.
I love that. And like you said about body trust, I think that's one of the biggest takeaways from this new non-diet approach, is that you actually learn to trust your body again, that it's doing the right things, that it's
and it's also as well that I now know, like, the reason I crave maybe something sugary is because I'm tired. It's not that I'm addicted to sugar and I want that. No, it's my body needs a really quick fix of energy. Oh, that jacket potato, that smells amazing. Oh, actually, I need something carby to eat, because I'm going to do a bit. At 35, I'm having to rediscover my own body cues. And if I fancy something, I don't eat really much red meat, but the other day I was like, I love a steak. Well, that's my body telling me you need some iron. And just learning to listen to my body, because diet culture says, well, you eat this then, and you eat that there, and you weigh this and you measure that. And
I've been there.
Right. So, it's a lot. And I just don't want my child to have to go through that. And if I can, we're almost now learning together.
I love that. It's so wonderful. Well, we'll leave it there. And it's great to have you on board. I was so excited when we started working together.
I know, it's great. I think it's been really good for sort of all of us. It's been
and I know
lovely.
that, like, your main goal when we first started working together was to get back to the gym, and now you are, and figuring things out with that. It's been amazing to have the process with you, and thank you for sharing your thoughts.
No, thank you for having me.
Okay, I will speak to you soon. I'm going to hit stop recording.
Bye.